http://imager.com/a/ranzes. I've been playing the same game of Civ II for 10 years. Though long outdated, I grew fascinated with this particular game because by the time Civ III was released, I was already well into the distant future. I then thought that it might be interesting to see just how far into the future I could get and see what the ramifications would be. Naturally, I play other games and have a life, but I often return to this game when I'm not doing anything and carry on. The results are as follows. The world is a hellish nightmare of suffering and devastation. There are 3 remaining supernations in the year 3991 AD, each competing for the scant resources left on the planet after dozens of nuclear wars have rendered vast swaths of the world uninhabitable wastelands. The ice caps have melted over 20 times. Somehow, due primarily to the many nuclear wars. As a result, every inch of land in the world that isn't a mountain is inundated swampland. Useless to farming, most of which is irradiated anyway. As a result, big cities are a thing of the distant past. Roughly 90% of the world's population, at its peak 2,000 years ago, has died either from nuclear annihilation or famine caused by the global warming that has left absolutely zero arable land to farm. Engineers, late-game worker units, are always busy continuously building roads so that new armies can reach the front lines. Roads that are destroyed the very next turn when the enemy goes. So there isn't any time to clear swamps or clean up the nuclear fallout. Only 3 supermassive nations are left. The Celts, me, the Vikings, and the Americans. Between the 3 of us, we have conquered all the other nations that have ever existed and assimilated them into our respective empires. You've heard of the 100-Year War? Try the 1700-Year War. The 3 remaining nations have been locked in an eternal death struggle for almost 2,000 years. Peace seems to be impossible. Every time a ceasefire is signed, the Vikings will surprise attack me or the Americans the very next turn. Often with nuclear weapons, even when the UN forces a peace treaty. So I can only assume that peace will come only when they're wiped out. It is this that perpetuates the war ad infinitum. Have any of you old Civ II players out there ever had this problem in the post-late game? Because of SDI, ICBMs are usually only used against armies outside of cities. Instead, cities are constantly attacked by spies who plant nuclear devices which then detonate. Something I greatly miss from later Civ games. Usually the downside to this is that every nation in the world declares war on you. But this is already the case, so it's no longer a deterrent to anyone, myself included. The only governments left are 2 theocracies and myself. A communist state. I wanted to stay a democracy. But the Senate would always overrule me when I wanted to declare war before the Vikings did. This would delay my attack and render my turn and often my plans useless. And of course the Vikings would then break the ceasefire like clockwork the very next turn. Something I also miss in later Civ games is a little internal politics. Anyway, I was forced to do away with democracy roughly 1,000 years ago because it was endangering my empire. But of course the people hate me now and every few years since then. There are massive guerrilla, late-game barbarians, uprisings in the heart of my empire that I have to deal with, which saps resources from the war effort. The military stalemate is airtight. The post-late game in Civ II is perfectly balanced because all remaining nations already have all the technologies, so there is no advantage. And there are so many units at once on the map that you could lose 20 tank units and not have your lines dented because you have a constant stream moving to the front. This also means that cities are not only tiny towns full of starving people, but that you can never improve the city. So you want a granary so you can eat? Sorry. I have to build another tank instead. Maybe next time. My goal for the next few years is to try and end the war and thus use the engineers to clear swamps and fallout so that farming may resume. I want to rebuild the world. But I'm not sure how. If any of you old Civ II players have any advice, I'm listening. Edit. Wow guys. Thanks for all your support. I had no idea this post would get this kind of response. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on my efforts. Whether here on Reddit, or a blog, or both. Turns out a whole subreddit has been dedicated to ending this war. It's the eternal war. My plan to sort this mess out would be something along these lines. It's been a while since I've played Civ II, but I can remember some stuff. Forget ending the war. Try and get your front line such that you can consistently withstand attack. Forcing a stalemate. Basically stop wasting production on tanks and planes that are going to get nuked anyway. Change to fundamentalism. I remember this was bad for research, but you don't need it now anyway. But the people will stop hating you and you'll have more coin. Get your core cities to rebuild and fix the land surrounding them. Very costly in engineers. And get farms and production moving. I'm guessing it take a lot of turns to build a tank in a low population city. Once all that's in place, build an army of tanks, mountain troops, artillery and SPYS, the like of which has never been seen, and keep it off the front lines. Build railroads as far as they'll go without losing engineers. Once all is in place, get SPYS in every enemy city. Enough to guarantee a nuke hit. All the way to their capital. Hit them all at once and drop in the mountain boys. Wait for the nuke response. Hopefully using their whole stockpile. Then move your conventional army in and mop up the mess. Repeat with the other guys. Diplomacy's failed in this world. You've got to hit them hard and take over the world for the greater good. Then you can spend turn upon turn under the blanket of enforced religious peace, fixing it with hundreds of engineers if you like. It's for the greater good. If you disliked Augustus, you could just fight the legions protecting him. Remove him from power. Kill him. Then set up a new government. There is no need to kill his whole army to the last man. This was never how wars were fought. You fight a few battles. Win them all easily. Reach Rome. Take over and use the remnants of the old army to rule the empire. Which is still vast, so I guess your strategy needs rethinking. If you cannot bring part of the nobility to your side and start a new regime, your 2,000 men would not be much help policing the huge Roman Empire. Even with choppers, you would lose men here and there and eventually lose control. Tactically, the Romans wouldn't stand a chance. Abrams tanks can engage targets from several kilometers away. Even with them out of the picture. Your support weapons, on the Humvees and APCs, machine guns etc., have a range of several hundred meters to 2 kilometers. A rifle against a spear and sword is still no contest. You could mow down enemies armed with a gladius and pilum without them having the possibility to do anything about it. In this fashion, most armies would be broken and rout after losing a large part of their men. After a few battles like this, no one else would even try fighting you. It was very rare for armies to be obliterated, unless they were encircled or run down. Normally, after heavy casualties, the loser would retreat, take more casualties while running away and then sue for peace. Or regroup to fight another battle. If he had the power. TL. Doctor. Destroy a few legions. Let the others stay where they are to keep the peace. Roll up in Rome. Depose. Kill Augustus. Greater than in the year 3991 AD. Greater than Vikings will surprise attack. Greater than often with nuclear weapons. I'm sold. This is my favorite post in a long time. Thanks for sharing. Deleted. This ought to be best post for R. Gaming 2012. Fucking awesome. That's pretty awesome. I've played some games that went well into the future. Primarily in Civ III. But also in Civ II. But not to that extent. When global warming started to damage the terrain and my cities started declining, I always lost interest and started a new game. Unfortunately, I haven't played Civ II in so many years that I can't offer any advice on how to deal with the situation. What difficulty are you playing on? Send in a phalanx. What happened to the space race? Did you ever get that far? You should check out this comic book. http www.amazon.com/pax-romana-jonathan-hickman/dp/15824087734. It's about the Vatican sending a modern force back in time to prevent the fall of the Roman Empire. Or boo magic supply lines? That's cheating. BTW, does anyone remember in Age of Empires 2 when you could get the car that has a machine gun? I picture it like that.